what it's talking about, after they have come together, and this is what it tells you about in the 37th, chapter 36, 37, 38, they have a war, and it tells you that it's going to happen in the latter days, and I didn't write down. In the 7th verse, it says, the latter years shall come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and it's going to be in the latter years. In other words, in my lifetime, because it hasn't happened. It happened for 2,000 years. In fact, when Jesus was on earth, Israel was governed by Rome when he was on earth. And it hadn't happened in all those years. They had not really been a governor on their own until, and then God, and when in AD 70, 40 years after Jesus died, a little over, Titus came in and destroyed Israel, destroyed the temple, didn't leave one stone upon another, like Jesus prophesied would happen. And so they destroyed it. And they took the Jews off to different places and it dispersed them across the nations. And the biggest population of Jews outside of Israel now is in America. And it's getting pretty rough for them in America because of the anti-Semitism and because of Christians are the best friend, and Christians are second-class citizens, according to this leftist agenda that's in Washington right now. Anybody that's Christian, my brother said, everybody in the United States has been put upon except a straight male. And this is about it too. So already it says here in 38, verse 1, and the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief priest of Meshach, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and saying, This saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. Some people say Gog's a country. Some people say it's the leader of this company that comes down against Israel. He said, I will turn thee back and put hooks in thy mouth, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and swords, all of them handling swords. Now when the person wrote this, when God gave him this, all they had was spears. They didn't have guns. And that's the same way with when they wrote Revelations. There was no guns. So he might have been seeing, when he talked about the scorpions that were stinging, I believe he was talking about tanks or helicopters that were, because he could see things, but he had no words to explain it. It's like when Israel came back from dispersion, when the 1800s, when they first started gathering back into Israel, they was going to bring up forth Hebrew again to have pure language, which they do now. But they had no modern words. All they had was the Hebrew that was used in the synagogue, and they had no modern words for the lots of things, cars, planes. So I can't even think, I think his name was Herschel. I can't remember his name. But he had to invent words for all of these different things that he didn't know. And this is the same thing that's happening here. All right, and it tells you here what countries. I want you to see Persia. Where is Persia? Iran. What country is threatening Israel right now? Iran. Ethiopia. Now Ethiopia is still Ethiopia. It's northern Africa. And Libya, again in northern Africa. With them, all of them with shields and helmet. Gomer. Now there's a difference, and I used to think, well, it can't be. People have always said, well, this is Germany. I thought, no, it could be Germany. Couldn't be. But Germany is being invaded with Muslims right now. And it might be a Muslim country shortly. So it possibly could be Germany. And all his bands, and the house of Tugamara, which is Turkey, of the north quarters. Turkey. The 10th strongest ally in the NATO is Turkey. I believe it has the 6th or 7th strongest army in the world. And you wouldn't know it sitting up there very quietly. But they're able to do some damage. Until just recently, they were not religious. In other words, that they didn't have Sharia law, and they're trying to get rid of it again. They're trying to vote it out, but they're trying to enforce the Sharia law in Turkey. They've got a Muslim leader, and I can't say his name. Erdogan is his name, something like that. But he's trying to bring in Sharia law in Turkey. Here's what he says. He's all these people with him. And you go to 83, you'll find the Egyptians. All the different ones are with him. Jordan has threatened to Israel just recently. They better leave alone the Temple Mount. They're going to stir up a nest. They can't. In other words, just let them rock you. There's nothing you can do about it. And he said, be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto them. Be thou guard unto them. For many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come upon the land that is brought back from the sword. In other words, upon Israel. And is gathered out of many people against the mountain of Israel, which have been always waste, and it is brought forth out of the nations. And they shall dwell safely, all of them. And thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. And thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land. Thou and all thy bands and many people. Thus saith the Lord God, it shall also come to pass that at the same time that these shall the things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. Russia has already told Israel, we'll take care of your natural gas. Of course, they told them, no, we'll take care of it ourselves, but they're wanting, they have the largest depository of national gas. I think even, the United States, that's huge, but I think they even have more than us. And they said, we'll take care of it. And thou shalt ascend and come like a storm, with many people with him. This saith the Lord, it shall also come to pass that at that same time that shall come, and thou shalt have an evil thought. Thou shalt say, I will go up into the land of unwalled villages, and I will go to them that are at rest, which dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, and have neither bars nor gates. Take a spoil, and to take a prey, to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goods, that have dwelt in the midst of the land. Sheba and Danam and the merchants of Tarshish with all the young lions thereof shall say unto them, Art thou come to take a spoil? Now these is talking about England and the UK, and the young lions is us, none of them. Canada is another young lion. The ones that the nations that they still rule Canada, but the nations that they set forth, England is the lion. He said, and that's all they're going to say to him. They're not going to fight back. So are you come to take a spoil? Therefore, son of man, prophesy and say unto Gog, this saith the Lord God, in the day when my people of Israel dwelleth safely, thou shalt thou not know it, and thou shalt come from thy place out of the north parts, thou and many people with thee, all of them riding upon horses, and a great company and a mighty army. And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days. I will bring thee against my land, that the heathen may know when I shall be sanctified in thee before thine eyes. It says down here, it says in the 18th verse, and it shall come to pass at the same time when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, shall the Lord God, saith the Lord God, that my fury shall come up in my face. The Bible tells us it's a fearful thing to stand in the face of an angry God. And we see a lot of nations that have stood in the face of an angry God. Right now it's our nation. Why is our nation standing in the face of an angry God? Because of our apostasy, and because we went against Israel. We were the only protection for Israel up until this time, and now our president won't even vote for the Palestinians not to become a state. He said no, he's not going to veto that. He's not going to stand with Israel anymore. That's what happened to Egypt, England. I mean, they didn't keep their word with Israel. At that time, the sun didn't set on their empire. They had India and all over the world they had. They went against Israel. Japan, just before that great tsunami, had spoken that they didn't believe that they ought to give Israel special privileges. They ought to just let them take care of themselves, and they ought not to sell their goods. England now has went against them and said they're going to label all the goods that's come out of the settlements. Yes. No. Remember how many of you remember Carter? Another real good man, but a weak man. I was thinking about Huckabee because he kind of reminds me of Carter. He's a good Christian man, but I don't know how strong he'd be. Carter was a good man, but he's a weak man, and up until that time the Shah had run Iran, and we had deals with them, and they had our equipment. I gave them stuff to fix their equipment, and then what they call mullahs, the mullahs, took over. They had a revolution, and they took our men. Now, how many did they have? I don't remember, 123 or something men that they had taken out of the embassy there, and they kept them captive until Reagan became into power. The day that Reagan was going to be sworn in, they were afraid of Reagan. They let him loose that day. He had made 2 or 3 different attempts to get them out, crashed our plane in the kind of like the deal we're in now, just feeble attempts, like we looked feeble. Anybody remember Carter but me? Of course, I remember Eisenhower too, so that goes a long ways. Huh? Yeah, that's because they had been taken over by the Muslims, and they were and they'd run the leader anyway out, and he went to another country, fled, and they had our men captive, and they were mistreating them. Huh? Yeah, and they were mistreating our men at that time. That's when it turned. Up until that time, people kept, what do you mean Iran's going to come against Persia? Persia is Iran. So what do you mean that Iran's going to come against Israel? We're friends with them. How quick? Lebanon, the same thing. We thought that Lebanon was a Christian nation until the Hamas comes down and took it over. Killed the Christians. And the ones that didn't kill, they escaped. And they've taken over, destroyed their land. And then in the 17th chapter of Isaiah, it tells us that Damascus is going to be a ruinous heap. This is the longest continuous occupied city in the world is Damascus. And when this gets done, it's going to be a ruinous heap. The Bible tells us in Zechariah, the 12th chapter, that Judah is going to be like a match. It's going to go over there, it's going to burn them. Their princes are going to destroy Damascus. And I'm going to read that to you today, maybe. But what I want you to see with your mind, I want you to see, we've got Lebanon's right above Israel, which is now a Muslim country, taken over by Assad and ISIS and Hamas, all of them terrorists. They want to kill Israel. That's all they talk about, is doing away with Israel. And then Damascus is right above that, right on this side of it. Damascus, Syria is a big country. It's had a civil war going on, which was started by our president, the Muslim Spring. He already threw out the Egyptian president, and Bush threw out the Iraqi president, which the Christians had rights when they were dictators, but they had rights. They didn't let the Muslims kill them when they were president. But in the Middle East, you say, why should we be concerned with the Middle East? Besides for the fact that Israel's our ally, why should we be concerned? That should be the main reason. Well, that's true. we don't stop it over there, it's going to come over here. But the main reason we need to be concerned, or we are concerned, is because of oil. The army has become our army, a hammer in the world. To any time that when the reason why we went down in Iraq, they said it was because they had the nuclear weapons, but they had told us they were going to go off the dollar, and that's going to happen shortly. Some of the rest of them have already started using gold instead of dollars. Same thing with Libya. Libya had started using gold. You say, what do you mean using gold? To sell their, only taking gold in for their oil and their fuel. When Nixon was in president, I liked him even though he was a crook. But they're all crooks. Some of them get found out. But
He just got caught.
huh?
He just got caught.
Yeah, he just got caught. If they catch this one here, we'd be in big trouble. But when he was president, he made a deal. He went off the gold standard. Anybody know what the gold standard is? I have it